UFC Fight Night Vegas 45, Lewis versus Daukaus takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelim opener of Mateusz Sayles versus Jourdain Leavitt. I'm going with Jourdain Leavitt here. I think he's got a big grappling advantage over Matt Sayles. Of course, we haven't seen Matt Sayles since he got submitted by Bryce Mitchell with a twister in the first round, and it was with ease as well. Bryce Mitchell took him down, did what he wanted with him, and immediately submitted him. It wasn't like a Charles Rosa situation or like an Andre Philly situation where you can see the guy on the ground has some kind of an awareness against Bryce Mitchell and they can escape bad positions and survive out there and maybe even work their way back up to their feet. Matt Sayles was completely lost on the ground against Bryce Mitchell, got twisted in the first round, and I believe Jourdain Leavitt has got good grappling too, and I don't think Matt Sayles has got the level of grappling to stop the takedowns of Jourdain Leavitt. Of course, Jourdain Leavitt did lose his last fight to Claudio Puelles, and I'll be honest as well, did not look too good against Claudio Puelles either, and maybe if this was a guy that was better than Matt Sayles, I wouldn't be picking Jourdain Leavitt here because he really did let me down with that performance against Claudio Puelles, but it was quite close, and Claudio Puelles just won against Chris Gertschmacher and submitted him in the third round, so I'm going to trust Jourdain Leavitt to be able to out-grapple Matt Sayles in the first round, and I'm going to call a late first round arm triangle submission for Jourdain Leavitt because Matt Sayles hasn't got the ground game, doesn't really seem too dangerous on the feet either. If he does end up on top, he can actually be quite good, but I think Jourdain Leavitt's going to start the takedown, he'll engage it first, he'll end up on top first, and from there I think he'll be able to do what he wants with Matt Sayles, who's a young guy, trains at a good gym, still has time to improve, but Jourdain Leavitt has all of those same things as well, and I think he'll be able to win this one with the grappling and get a first round arm triangle choke over Matt Sayles. Moving on up the card, Don'Tale Mayes versus Josh Parisian. I'm going to go with Don'Tale Mayes here over Josh Parisian. They're both decently capable fighters, but you've got Don'Tale Mayes, younger guy, more to improve on. He's lost to better opponents, like he beat Root Martinez. Josh Parisian lost to Root Martinez. Of course, that's not just how it works, but again, Don'Tale Mayes somewhat held his own in the second round against Cyril Gane. Rewatched that fight. It wasn't like a dominant round for Cyril Gane. Now, it still was a very clear round for Cyril Gane in terms of like he just completely outlanded Don'Tale Mayes. But Mayes had a couple of moments here and there. A couple of punches landed here and there as well. He's stuck in there for the duration. I think he's got good cardio to go 3 rounds. Josh Parisian maybe has the same thing as well, but I just feel like Parisian has been letting me down recently against opponents that I believe he should be beating, like Root Martinez. He got out-hustled in that fight by Root Martinez, and you've got Don'Tale Mayes here, the bigger guy, the younger guy. He's got reach advantage as well in a stand-up fight, which I assume it will be, and he's got massive power advantage, and he's just a much better athlete in general now. Josh Parisian could land a spinning back fist or like a spinning back kick. We know he likes to spin, did it on the Contender Series, but I just don't trust him to win here against Don'Tale Mayes. In terms of a striking matchup, I'm going with the younger guy, the more powerful guy, the more technically sound guy by the looks of both of them when I've watched both of them fight. Don'Tale Mayes seems a little bit more technical. Josh Parisian just doesn't seem too good whatsoever, really, and I thought he would somewhat be quite good when he first got to the UFC, but he hasn't really been that way, and Don'Tale Mayes isn't good either, so it's like, I'm trying to like compliment one guy and diss the other guy, but it's like, both guys should really be dissed. They're not good fighters, and they probably don't deserve to be in the UFC in general, but Josh Parisian actually got the win over Root Martinez. Why is that? Oh yes, I thought that Root Martinez could have maybe won that fight against Josh Parisian. That's why I'm thinking of it that way. Root Martinez should have won that fight against Josh Parisian. Completely outworked him in a clinch. But either way, he got given the win somehow. I completely forgot about that. It's literally in my mind as a loss to Josh Parisian. And before that, he lost to Parker Porter. Now, Parker Porter might just beat Don'Tale Mayes. But I'm going to go with Don'Tale Mayes. Bigger, longer on the feet, rangier. He's got more technical ability in my opinion. Younger, more athletic, more powerful. What more do you need? I'm going with Don'Tale Mayes in this pretty even matchup where you don't really know what's going to happen because there's not much to know about either of them. Moving on up the card to another fight, which is Raquel Pennington versus Macy Chiasson. I'm going to go with Raquel Pennington here over Macy Chiasson. Raquel Pennington is not a bad fighter. Like, well, all women's bantamweights are terrible fighters, so I'm saying that with like a pinch of salt here. But either way, Raquel Pennington is one of the okay ones. Of course, she is a lesbian, but Macy Chiasson could also be a lesbian by the judge of that haircut. But She beat Pani Kianzad in her last fight, which is actually a pretty good win to have. Pani Kianzad's a decent, capable fighter, and that was recently as well, just back in September. Got a win over Pani Kianzad there in a very close fight. Also beat Marion Renault pretty clearly. Had a win over Irene Aldana by split decision, which is a very good win looking back at it, because Irene Aldana is still a top contender. She got held against the cage by Holly Holm, outdone by Jermaine Durandamy, and beaten by Amanda Nunes in the 5th round. That's some pretty royal company to be on the losing end of. Again, before that, she lost to Holly Holm. Before that, she lost to Jessica Andrade by split decision. Holly Holm by split decision. I mean, I don't judge those losses, in my opinion. It is weird that Andrade can move up and beat a girl like Pennington, but that just shows how bad women's bantamweights are compared to the strawweights and the lower weight divisions in general. But Macy Chiasson, good opponent, didn't find her performance against Marion Renault that impressive, if I'm honest with you guys. It's not enough to tell me that she's going to be able to beat Raquel Pennington, because Pennington is such a force. She's so strong. She can hold you against a cage, knee you to the body, knee you to the thigh, make it a really boring fight. And I just wasn't all that impressed by Macy Chiasson against Marion Renault. She did good. She reversed a couple of takedowns, but she also got taken down and got controlled in certain rounds and had a couple of close rounds here and there. I'm going to go with Raquel Pennington winning this one. I think she's too physical, too strong, and she'll bully Macy Chiasson up against the cage. But I hope that Macy Chiasson wins, because she's the younger girl, more promotable, and a better record as well. But I'm going to go with Pennington, stopping the rise of Macy Chiasson and getting this one done, much like Lena Landsberg could. I think Pennington's at that level. Moving on up the card, Charles Jourdain versus Andre Ewell. I'm going to go with Charles Jourdain. I'm picking Jourdain to win this one by TKO. Andre Ewell moving up to another weight class, but they're more powerful at featherweight, so it's not as easy as I'm not draining as much weight. I'm going to have a better chin. Andre Ewell's chin does seem to fail him in most moments in fights. Charles Jourdain is, again, another bit of a letdown of a career. Sorry, Charles Jourdain. I know you've watched these videos before. I've seen you in the comments. But I'm going to have to go again. I'm going to have to go against Andre Ewell. But I'm being critical here of Charles Jourdain. He doesn't like the pressure. He doesn't like the volume. And that could be a problem here. But Andre Ewell is not much of a pressure guy. He's a rangy guy. Likes to surprise you with a big shot outside of the reach that you thought he had, because he's got weirdly long arms. What's the reach advantage that he has here? Surely about 4 inches, right? 6-inch reach advantage for Andre Ewell over Charles Jourdain. 75 to 69 inches. It's going to be a big advantage here, but Charles Jourdain kicks at the legs, kicks at the body, slowly start to break down Andre Ewell as the fight goes on. And Ewell just seems to be able to be kicked at range quite easily, even with that reach advantage. He had a reach advantage over Nathaniel Wood. Wood chopped at his legs, broke him down. Same situation against Chris Gutierrez, I believe. Chopped at his legs, beat him down, eventually wore on him and got the job done. Andre Ewell's had an easy way of beating him, shown many times, and I think Jourdain can do that as well. He lost to Ferreira, got pressured, got broken down as the fight went on. Lost to Julio Arce, got pressured, got broken down as the fight went on. Finished him in the 2nd round. He's coming off that TKO loss, wants to move up a division. Could it reinvent himself? Maybe, but I'm going to go with Charles Jourdain getting this one done. And also, I want to mention this. TKO in the 1st round for Charles Jourdain, I reckon. But 3rd round TKO, I think I said first. 3rd round TKO for Charles Jourdain. But I'm going to call a broken arm for Andre Ewell. I think it's happened twice in his career so far. He's been kicked on his forearm, his right forearm, and his forearm is shattered. Jourdain smashes kicks into the arms. It's all he did against Andre Fili, and it's how he did so good against Andre Fili, even when he hasn't performed too well against guys like Julian Erosa. He smashes kicks into arms. He does not give a fuck if the arms are there. He will smash them into them like Paulo Costa did to Marvin Vettori. Andre Ewell has had a history of breaking his forearm. I could see a broken forearm here for Andre Ewell, and that's just going to tilt me in the favour of Charles Jourdain more in general. I'd like to see Jourdain be put under some pressure here by Ewell. I don't see that happening. Ewell's a rangier fighter. I think it plays right into Charles Jourdain's hands, and I think he could even have an advantage on the ground, because Ewell showed against Nathaniel Wood he had no understanding of what to do on the ground. Of course, his leg was hurt before then as well, but I feel like Jourdain's got options. He's better on the feet. He's more powerful. Ewell could reinvent himself, but I'm going to trust Jourdain to win this one with kicks, breaking down Ewell as the fight goes on and finishing him in the 3rd round by TKO. Moving on up the card, Sijara Eubanks versus Melissa Gatto. I'm gonna go with Melissa Gatto in an upset win here. She's quite a big underdog, which I was confused by. I thought it would maybe lean the way of Sijara Eubanks, but I could see Melissa Gatto getting this one done. I think they're pretty even on the feet. Probably Eubanks has a slight advantage in terms of just her experience in the cage. She's in there with some of the best. She could do that. She can compete with them as well. She knows that. Melissa Gatto hasn't been to those realms of going to war. She's had a draw a couple of times where she's dominated and started to slow down. But Sijara Eubanks seemed to entertain the ground game a little bit too much in certain fights that she has. She's not too good. She's getting older and older. I think this is the time that you pick an upset of Melissa Gatto winning this one against Sijara Eubanks. I can see Melissa Gatto and Eubanks being very patient on the feet early. Eubanks ending up on top of Melissa Gatto and thinking that she's safe, and then getting latched up in an armbar on bottom by Melissa Gatto, who's got very good jiu-jitsu. Submitted, what was her name? Carol Rosa, I believe it was, in the women's division. Submitted her with a Kimura in the first round, and Carol Rosa is a very, very capable fighter, so I think I'm going to trust her to get a submission here in the first round. I can see both of them tangling up, falling to the ground. Eubanks is on top. She thinks that she's winning because she's on top. All of a sudden, armbar's locked in. Eubanks is tapping, and Melissa Gatto remains undefeated, and I think she'll continue her streak. Although she's had some draws in her career because of dominating and then losing and situations like that, and she hasn't lost to the best of opponents, or the people that she's drawn with aren't the best, but that Carol Rosa win, after the time off that she had, is pretty good. The Victoria Leonardo win, she broke her arm, did well on the feet in that fight as well, showed some improvements in the stand-up. I think I'm going to go with an arm bar submission for Melissa Gatto on bottom in the first round as an upset against Sijara Eubanks. But who knows? It's Sijara Eubanks. She's pretty manly. Moving on up the card, Justin Tafa versus Harry Hunsucker. I'm going to go with Justin Tafa. Not as easy of a pick as some people might think. I'm going to go with Tafa, though. Harry Hunsucker's got pretty quick hands, pretty dangerous on the feet, has got some KO power, but I think Tafa's shown a more well-roundedness to his game recently. He's shown an improvement of cardio, he mixes in kicks way more. His record of 4-3 doesn't really show how good he really is, because arguably he should have beaten Carlos Felipe, which is a really bad decision in my opinion, but I'm going to go with Justin Tafa. He's shown big improvements recently, he's kicking way more than he used to, and I think kicking out there is going to be a huge advantage for him, especially if he goes to the calf, because what happened when the last Samoan guy chopped at the calf of Harry Hunsucker? Tai Tuivasa chopped down his leg, beat him up on the feet afterwards, and KO'd him in the first round. I reckon Tafa can follow that same game plan, and I reckon he'll get this one done. Of course, he did lose to Jared Van Dieren in his last fight, which is not a good loss. Like, how does this happen? But either way, he looked good in that fight. He had some moments here and there. He rocked Van Dieren a couple of times, but the pressure was too much. I don't see Hunsucker putting on the pressure. I see him getting into a quick-paced brawl that could go either way in the first round. And I'm going to call a first-round KO from Justin Tafa with like a body kick that hurts Hunsucker. Hunsucker starts swinging back and gets cracked with a big counter shot. Down goes Hunsucker. Justin Tafa gets a first-round KO. Moving on up the card, Raoni Barcelos versus Victor Henry. I'm going to go with Raoni Barcelos here. If this was Victor Henry against another guy coming in, maybe I'd pick Victor Henry here. Good prospect. I've seen him fight at Rising against a couple of good opponents. He won both of his fights at Rising. He's lost fights on the regional scene as well. In all honesty, if this wasn't on short notice, he ain't getting signed by the UFC. 34, one-fight win streak. He's very good. Good submission game, good chin as well. He takes a lot of damage in his fight sometimes. He can wear through that damage. But I'm going to go with Raoni Barcelos winning this one by TKO. I don't see Victor Henry being a submission threat to Raoni Barcelos despite having a good submission game. I think Raoni Barcelos has still got it. 34 years of age. The UFC do not want him to succeed, which is why they've made this matchup in the first place. He should have went to a draw with Timo Valiev, dropped him badly in the second round twice, once with an uppercut, once with a right hand, and I'm going to go with the uppercut here for Raoni Barcelos. Victor Henry's going to get smacked in the second round by KO. I think Raoni Barcelos is going to chop up his leg in that first round really badly, not worry about being taken down because he's got a good ground game himself. He was able to out-grapple Said Nurmagomedov in certain moments of their fight. I mean, but you can't compare the levels of competition, and plus Henry's taking it on short notice, which doesn't favour him as the fight goes on. I reckon we'll see the first TKO loss of Victor Henry's career. Raoni Barcelos chopping at the legs early, landing big shots, eventually breaking down Victor Henry in the second round, and then landing that big uppercut, dropping him badly, and finishing him off against the cage. Raoni Barcelos gets this one done. He's one of the better bantamweights right now. In all honesty, I reckon Raoni Barcelos could beat many guys that are ranked right now at bantamweight, but He's just outside the rankings. I'm going to go with Raoni Barcelos, second round TKO. Victor Henry's good. I'd maybe pick him against some of the bottom feeders in the bantamweight division to win a couple of fights over them and then eventually get beaten by someone else. But debuting against Raoni Barcelos, not a good idea. Going with Barcelos here. Moving on up the card. Dustin Stoltzfus versus Gerald Meerschaert. I'm going with Gerald Meerschaert. I think this is one of the locks of the card. I don't see Meerschaert losing this one. He's been looking great recently. Looked good against Makhmudmuradov. There's a chance that Stoltzfus could maybe get a KO in the first round because Meerschaert is notoriously a pretty slow starter. Even against Muradov, he didn't have a great first round, but eventually started to turn it round and get the job done and change the tide of the fight. I'm going to trust in Gerald Meerschaert to win this one over Dustin Stoltzfus. In my opinion, you're betting on a Hail Mary if you're betting Stoltzfus to win. What are the odds right now? He's not that big of a favourite. Jesus, that is a lock. You see some of these odds of like Makhachev versus Dan Hooker. Fair play, he dominated him, but going into it, the perception is not that skewed. You know what I mean? This, in my opinion, it's Meerschaert's fight to lose. Now, he can lose fights by fucking pulling himself on bottom like he did against fucking Jack Hermansson in their fight that they had. But I do trust him to win this one. He's lost to good opponents. Chimaev, Heinich, capable fighters. I think if he gets his groove going, he can get into this fight and make it happen. Stoltzfus seemed very one-dimensional against Rodolfo Vieira, a jiu-jitsu guy. You couldn't do anything to him on the feet. I don't see him getting Meerschaert to the ground. I don't see him doing anything to Meerschaert on the ground. And if you can't take advantage of Rodolfo Vieira's stand-up because of his jab, his legendary jiu-jitsu jab that he's using on you, I'm not going to trust him to get this one done. Stoltzfus is good, but not good enough to beat Gerald Meerschaert. And not good in general, should I say. I shouldn't even say he's good. He's not very good, pretty one-dimensional, not much power in his hands. I'm going to go with a Gerald Meerschaert win. Don't see him getting submitted by Stoltzfus. Stoltzfus does have some career submissions. Don't see that going his way on the ground against Gerald Meerschaert. I can see Meerschaert landing big shots on him and latching up a guillotine in round 2 as Stoltzfus shoots for a takedown after being outstruck, as Meerschaert starts to build his momentum into the fight. I'm going with Gerald Meerschaert winning this one by second round guillotine choke submission. He gets it done. Reach advantage, size advantage as well, and plus the momentum, and also Stoltzfus is taking this on short notice. I'm going with Meerschaert getting it done. Moving on up the card to another fight, which is Cub Swanson versus Darren Elkins. Great fight to start off the main card. I'm going with Cub Swanson here over Darren Elkins. I think he's good enough to do it. There's not many good enough to beat Darren Elkins because I don't know why. He seems pretty easy to beat. But typically it's the fighter's own problems that make them lose to Darren Elkins. They gas out, they get lazy and lose position, end up on bottom. I think Cub Swanson is a veteran enough not to gas out, not to lose position, not to end up on bottom. He's massively improved his grappling defense recently in his fights. I reckon in a stand-up matchup, which I see this taking place as, Cub Swanson's going to outstrike Darren Elkins, work him to the body, land big shots upstairs. I don't see him getting a KO. I can see this being a scrappy war back and forth, where maybe Elkins starts to win the third round, who knows? But I'm going to call a 29-28 decision for Cub Swanson. He's got a stand-up advantage. He took damage against Daniel Pineda and still turned back the clock and beat him in the second round by KO. I can trust in Cub Swanson to win this one against Darren Elkins. Good fight, competitive fight. But Swanson's a veteran, and he doesn't have to learn how it feels to be in a third round like Darrick Minner, where he started to slow down. So I can definitely see Cub Swanson getting this one done. I don't really hold a Giga Chikadze loss against him, seeing as Chikadze just beat Edson Barboza. So I'm going to go with Cub Swanson. Split decision against Shane Burgos. Lost to some of the best fighters in the sport, Brian Ortega, Edgar at the time in 2018. Of course, he has a previous loss to Edgar too. But his improvement of grappling makes me trust him here against Elkins. In the first Edgar fight, he got taken down all over the place. In the second Edgar fight, he didn't get taken down once. So I'm definitely going to go over Cub Swanson. Good grappling defense, and I think he can win a stand-up fight against Elkins for 3 rounds. 29-28 Cub Swanson. Moving on up the card to Carlos Diego Ferreira versus Mateusz Gamrot. Oh my god, this card is good. I'm going with Gamrot. The gamer, Mateusz Gamrot, one of the best fighters right now in the lightweight division coming up. Looking forward to seeing how he does against Carlos Diego Ferreira. Carlos Diego Ferreira is a very capable fighter, and he is actually a bit of a risky guy to bet against because he actually showed good capability against Gregor Gillespie in stuffing some of those takedown attempts. Hit the back of the head a couple of times in that fight as well, by the way. But even still, Gregor Gillespie finished him by TKO, and I've just seen him slow down a bit recently in his fights. Like, it wasn't... He didn't really look that great against Pettis. I know he beat Pettis, but that was more Pettis quitting. He had one sign of adversity. I think he cut his thumb or something and blamed it all on that because Pettis gets given any sign that he might lose and then just quits the rest of the fight long. There was a time where Diego Ferreira was a real monster in that division. He beat Maybek Taisimov, beat Rustam Khabibov. He was the Dagestani hunter. But recently, a loss to Beneil Dariush, which should have been unanimous. He very clearly lost to Beneil Dariush. And Gregor Gillespie gassed him out, beat him down, TKO'd him. 36 years of age compared to an in-prime Mateusz Gamrot. I don't see this going well for Diego Ferreira. I like Mateusz Gamrot winning this one. He's got good grappling, good stand-up, good cardio, good strength, a good chin. I mean, he's just a very well-rounded guy, so I can't point at one area of his game and say this is where he does badly against Carlos Diego Ferreira. Fair play, maybe if Ferreira gets it to the ground, there could be problems. But again, I reckon Carlos Diego Ferreira and Jeremy Stephens would have a pretty competitive scrap for as long as that fight lasts. Like, it would be a back-and-forth contest, both guys having their moments. Diego ended up on top, but Stephens working his way back up to his feet for a moment. But to watch Mateusz Gamrot go out there, put down Stephens easily, and then just fucking Kimura him like he's nothing, like he's not Jeremy Stephens, it was very impressive to see. I didn't know how to rate him after the Scott Holtzman win because Holtzman's not too good, but then again, Beneil Dariush also is a guy who beat Holtzman, but not a great win. I thought he beat Guram Kutsteledze based on the first and third round, who's also a great fighter himself. So I'm going to trust Mateusz Gamrot to win this one. He competes in grappling matches against guys like Gary Tonon to improve his grappling himself. He doesn't mind doing that. He's always fought good competition outside the UFC. In fact, this isn't even the hardest fight of his career. He's fought Parayev, who was 18-0 at the time, Cavajero, who was 16-3, Chalequi, who was 12-3. Like, there's... At KSW, if you stay there long enough, you'll take on monster after monster after monster. So, I'm definitely going to be going with Mateusz Gamrot here, and I think I'm going to pick him to win by TKO in the second round, I reckon. I think he's going to land some good shots early. Both guys are going to have a decent fight early on. Mateusz shoots for some takedowns. Diego Ferreira readies himself on the ground for like a guard playing game. Doesn't do it. Mateusz stands back up, kicks his legs, beats him down again, shoots another takedown, gets him down, but doesn't entertain the ground game. Stays on his feet, kicks his legs, pounds him to the body from the stacked guard. And then I can see maybe him faking a takedown, landing that right hand like he did against Scott Holtzman on Diego Ferreira in the second round. So I'm going to trust that in a stand-up matchup, because if Gamrot wants it on the ground, he can get it there, but he might not do well there. But I don't see Ferreira being able to choose to get Gamrot to the ground. And Gamrot's got really good takedown defense. On a stand-up matchup, I can see Gamrot having more power, more speed, and more durability at this point in his career. I'm going to call a second-round TKO for him. Moving on up the card, Raphael Assuncao versus Ricky Simone. Ooh, this is a dastardly one. I'm going to go with Ricky Simone winning this over Raphael Assuncao. But I don't mind an Assuncao underdog. I do not mind that. But at this point in his career, 39 at bantamweight, you know, coming off that really bad KO loss to Cody Garbrandt, which was now, what, over a year ago, a year and a half ago? Oh my God, I'm going to die soon. A year and a half ago? Okay. All right, I'll be in a grave shortly. A year and a half ago that was. Okay. Cool stuff. Anyway, got KO'd by Cody Garbrandt a year and a half ago. Beaten by Sandhagen before that. Beaten by Moraes before that. Got rocked, then guillotine choked. And just going from a guy who could beat Marlon Moraes to a guy who gets destroyed in the first round by Marlon Moraes kind of shows where his career trajectory is going. You know what I'm saying? A guy who can beat TJ Dillashaw then goes on to a guy who can lose to TJ Dillashaw quite convincingly. A guy who can beat Aljamain Sterling to a guy who can't figure out Cody Garbrandt. Like, he's got a very good style. He's got good counter grappling. But Ricky Simone is a big guy. I know he got clipped by Uriah Faber, but other than that, his only loss is to Rob Font that you need to pay attention to in the UFC anyway. He beat Montel Jackson, out-grappled him, had moments there as well. Montel Jackson is a very good prospect in the bantamweight division that you've got to look out for on your own time anyway. He's a very good prospect in his own right. He beat Rani Yahya, which I know shouldn't take congratulations, but it means that he's not a bottom feeder, I guess, because Yaya's on a fucking 2-fight win streak, so it does actually mean a bit to beat Rani Yaya. He beat Ray Borg, which is a very good win because Ray Borg's got good takedown defense, and yet still Simone was able to get him down to the canvas many times. Dominated Gaetano Perillo, submitted him in the second round, and then just dominated Brian Kelleher, who again is a very capable grappler, who's a good fighter at bantamweight, who was on the rise at the time. I can see Simone edging out a very close split decision 29-28 win over Raphael Assuncao. Assuncao having his moments here and there, stuffing takedowns here and there. Maybe Ricky Simone starts to gas out in the third round and Assuncao comes back strong and there's a close second round. But I think Simone's going to be too big, too strong, too improved. He's also quite good on the feet as well. And I don't know how Assuncao's chin's going to be after that massive Garbrandt KO at 38 years of age. Now he's 39. I'm not going to trust a 39-year-old bantamweight to beat Ricky Simone. So I'm going with Ricky Simone winning this one by unanimous decision. No, I'll call a split decision win for Ricky Simone here. Getting it done. He's got a reach advantage, size advantage, youth advantage, grappling advantage in general. I think he gets this one done with superior strength in those grappling positions, despite the takedown defense of Assuncao. Moving on up the card, Amanda Lemos versus Angela Hill. I'm going to go with I was hoping I would have figured it out by now, because I've been flipping back and forth. I'm going to go with I'm going to go with Angela Hill. The demon brought that out of me then. I didn't even say that prediction. Some possessed spirit made me say that. I'm going to go Angela Hill as an underdog. Amanda Lemos, 34 years of age, has lost some fights in her career and also doesn't dominate everyone, so I find it hard to trust KO power at strawweight. Look at Nami Yunus versus Zhang. Boom, big KO in the first round. She landed big head kicks against Zhang in a rematch, but nothing happened. Like, it's very inconsistent to bet on KO power at women's strawweight. We saw it in the Rose Namajunas versus Ioanni and Jacek matchup. KO'd her in the first round easily, dropped her twice, didn't drop her once in the rematch. I do trust Angela Hill as a more well-rounded, experienced, and capable fighter than Amanda Lemos, because Amanda Lemos has had some fights in her career that haven't been the most impressive, to say the least. She beat Montserrat Ruiz, but then again, how good is Montserrat Ruiz? You fucking child's playground headlocked Cheyenne Bays for 3 rounds, because Cheyenne Bays has no understanding of grappling. So she beat her, but then again, got KO'd by Amanda Lemos in the first round. Weird stoppage, but again, it's fine. Women's MMA, you got to protect them a bit sooner. She beat Livia Renata Souza by KO in the first round. Livia Renata Souza just lost to Randa Marcos, you know? So what do I do about that? Really. She lost to Leslie Smith by TKO in the second round. Of course, that was a while ago, so let's look to a more recent fight. Mizuke Inoue was able to take her to a somewhat competitive decision. So, if Inoue can stop getting KO'd and take you to a decision, despite even being dropped in that fight, and come back and have a decently competitive fight with you, you still win. She won the fight pretty clearly. I reckon I'm going to bet on Angela Hill having as good of a chin, as good of striking awareness, above that of Montserrat Ruiz and Livia Renata Souza, because I think she's a way better fighter than them. And I think she's a better fighter than Mizuke Inoue, so I'm going to go with Angela Hill getting this one done by decision, 29-28. I think she might get hurt in the first round. Lemos goes for a finish but doesn't quite get it. Angela Hill survives. Lemos starts to gas out and slow down. Her power hasn't worked for her this time, and all of a sudden you've got Angela Hill working her in the second and third round, putting the volume on her quite well, and I think she'll get the job done against Amanda Lemos this weekend. I'm going with a big underdog here in Angela Hill getting this one done. I get it, Lemos has power, but you can't bet on that as strawweight. It is not consistent. It sometimes happens, it sometimes doesn't, and I can see Hill getting this one done if she just doesn't fear Amanda Lemos. And Hill's been in there with capable fighters herself. Should have beaten Claudia Gadelia, who is a high-level fighter in the women's strawweight division. Should have beaten Michelle Waterson, who's a decent, capable fighter in the women's strawweight division. Beat Luma Lookboom. Beat a bunch of other fighters. Ariane Canalosi is an underrated win. She's now doing quite well for herself in her own career. I reckon Tisha Torres is way better than people give her credit for, and that's been proven by her recent outings, including against Angela Hill. And I think that Angela Hill is a level above Amanda Lemos and above Mizuki Inoue, who could take her to a reasonably competitive decision. So I'm going to trust in Angela Hill, weirdly. I'm going to trust in it. I don't see her getting KO'd. I just don't see her getting KO'd. And if that don't happen, she's going to outstrike Lemos for 3 rounds, and she ain't going to get out-grappled. Moving on, up the card, Stephen Thompson versus Belal Muhammad. Gotta go with Stephen Thompson here. I can't think of a way Belal Muhammad wins. It can happen. There's a chance it can happen. Which is obviously why Wonderboy is not like a minus 1,000 favourite or anything. But Belal has had a trouble at times getting opponents to the ground. Gilbert Burns can get opponents to the ground. He's done that many times before. He's a great grappler himself. And even then, Wonderboy stayed out of danger, didn't give up his back, didn't give away any bad positions against Gilbert Burns. Still made it a very competitive fight in moments. Dropped him with a wheel kick at one point, I believe, or dropped him off balance with a wheel kick. Got punched in the back of the head a couple of times too. He's going to have worked on his grappling for this matchup for sure. I just don't see what Belal can do to him. Belal Muhammad is one of the fact that he is in the top 10 of any division is an absolute enigma to me. Diego Lima fight was competitive, but he won it very dominantly. But that's Diego Lima, who just got flatline KO'd by Matt Brown. Arguably could have lost to Lyman Good, but he beat Lyman Good, in my opinion, by putting on more volume. Takashi Sato, he was able to get him to the ground, but Takashi Sato has struggled with grappling in his career before. I just feel like there's a certain level of opponent, like a Jeff Neal, a Lyman Good, a Diego Lima, a Leon Edwards, that can stop this guy from getting him to the ground. And I reckon that Wonderboy can do that as well. Don't see Belal getting takedowns here. I can definitely see Wonderboy keeping this one standing, being pushed against the cage now and again, who cares, and just simply outstriking Belal Muhammad on the feet quite convincingly. Belal Muhammad, also not the youngest guy himself, but Wonderboy is now 38 years of age. If Belal Muhammad had KO power, I would understand and maybe entertain an underdog pick of him. But reach advantage, Wonderboy. Skill advantage, Wonderboy by far. I'm going to trust Wonderboy to win this one, schooling Belal Muhammad on the feet while stuffing takedowns for 3 rounds. 30-27, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. He gets this one done. Actually, you know what I'm going to go with? No decision. Wonderboy will probably knock him down and fucking help him back up and pat him on the head and give him a fucking voucher for some shit. Like, Wonderboy is just too nice to KO Belal Muhammad. So I'll go if Wonderboy probably drops him at one point and then helps him back up and says, oh, you're good, man, no problem. And then they move on and Wonderboy just schools him for the 3 rounds. So I'm going to go with Wonderboy winning this one on the feet. I think he's very capable enough to stop the takedowns of Belal Muhammad. And I think he will this weekend and keep it on the feet and outstrike Belal pretty easily. What does Belal do? Pressure, volume strikes. Sometimes mixes in a takedown as well against people who have no idea what they're doing on the ground. I don't think that pressure and volume striking would work against Wonderboy, and I can see Wonderboy just moving too well. We are in the smaller cage of the Vegas cage, which is a big deal, but I'm still going to trust Wonderboy to get this one done. Belal is just not that good. 19-3 is a good record though, but there seems to be that level where he can't quite get over, and a win over Maya nowadays is just like, oh, you can stuff a takedown. Good job. Moving on, up the card. Derrick Lewis versus Chris Daukaus. I'm going with the underdog Derrick Lewis here over Chris Daukaus. If you would have told me who wins Lewis versus Daukaus after Daukaus just beat Olenek, I probably would have picked Daukaus to win. The Shamil Abdurakhimov fight, it put Daukaus on the map for a lot of people. A lot of people watched that Shamil Abdurakhimov fight, watched Daukaus KO him basically twice in one fight and thought to themselves, wow, this guy's the real deal. I watched the Shamil Abdurakhimov fight and thought to myself, wow, this guy's got really shit range management, really bad head movement, and he takes a lot of shots coming forward that he shouldn't be taking really. Took him off Shamil Abdurakhimov. I know the KOs happened and they're very impressive. Do I see him KOing Derrick Lewis like that? No, I think he has the ability to maybe hurt Derrick Lewis and then go in for a finish afterwards, which is of course going to leave him open to the counter shots of Derrick Lewis. I like Lewis's mindset of getting right back in there before the end of the year, before Christmas, to try and get himself a win. As an underdog, I've got to take Lewis here. I've got to take Lewis as an underdog. I think Daukaus is a little bit too hittable at times. Lewis has a reach advantage, a size advantage. I could even see him getting this one to the ground or just ending up on top and being like fucking, 30 pounds bigger than Chris Daukaus out there, of solid mass on top of Daukaus, landing big shots of ground and pound. I don't think Daukaus is big enough to win the grappling exchanges himself, so that takes that out of the equation. It's not like he can go out there and ragdoll Derrick Lewis. If Daukaus has his perfect fight, it'll be a stand-up fight on the feet where he goes for the KO. And against Shamil Abdurakhimov, he was losing until those big moments. He was getting cracked on the chin, cracked to the body, big shots on the chin again, huge shots on the chin. He took them because they're Shamil Abdurakhimov. You can't show me that fat old heap of shit Shamil Abdurakhimov landing KO blows on you when you're about to go in there against Derrick Lewis, who is also a bit of a fat old piece of shit, but this time it's Derrick Lewis as the fat old piece of shit. So, I think he's got the KO power to do it. He's got reach, he's got size, and I think in certain ways he is intimidated by Cyril Gane, intimidated by Curtis Blades, intimidated by Ngannou, and that's where he doesn't have his best performances. If you give him a little shorter guy who he doesn't really have to fear too much and he's not outranged by, or he doesn't have to worry about the takedowns from, I reckon he can go in there, plant his feet, have a bit of a brawl. So I'm going to guess that he gets cracked on the feet early by Daukaus. Daukaus looks for a bit more of an action, tries to go in there and land more combinations. As he does it, Derrick Lewis right over the top, big right hand KO, right on the chin of Chris Daukaus. I reckon Derrick Lewis gets this one done by first round KO in the upset. Only a slight underdog, but you're giving me Lewis as an underdog here against Daukaus after that Shamil fight. I'm trusting Lewis to land one of those shots that Shamil did and put out Daukaus for good, because Daukaus just was walking into shots that it was almost like he seemed like he thought that he wasn't even in range of them. That's the worrying part. Like, he got hit by shots and was like, wow, that hit me. Like, you've got to understand the range at heavyweight. That's one of the biggest things you've got to understand is range at heavyweight. Otherwise, you're going to end up on your fucking ass. And I'm going to go with Derrick Lewis getting KOs in the first round against Daukaus here. Knocks him down, beats him up, finishes him off. First round KO for Lewis. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.